Good morning, Nigerians. Well, we'll jump straight into what we have today. Around the world and here at home, women are at home. Women remain vastly underrepresented in leadership roles across political and governance structures. This is despite accounting for nearly half of the population. But a change seems not only necessary, it is also possible. In parliaments, executive offices and boardrooms, the gender gap persists. According to recent data from the International Interparliamentary Union, women just hold 26.7% of parliamentary seats globally, and in many developing nations, the number are even lower. But across the globe, a new generation of women is stepping up, challenging old norms and demanding equal representation.
However, challenges persist from cultural stereotypes to political violence and limited access to campaign financing. But clearly, the path to closing the gender gap in governance is complex, but the momentum is building. The voices of women, long silenced or sidelined, are beginning to shape the policies of tomorrow. And as more societies embrace inclusive leadership, the message is becoming clear. When women lead, nations progress. For more on promoting women leadership in governance and politics, we have in the studio the CEO, TOS Group, Osasu Igbenejon Obuche. Thank you for coming on the program today.
Thank you both for having me, and
good to have you. I'm proud to the women.
Yes, power to Nigerian women.
TJ, you want to take the first shot?
All right. Well, as much as we say that, we're pushing for equality, gender equality, and, for women to have better representation, we still find challenges, in this space. A lot of women, yes, we have a lot of women being represented in some leadership roles, but they still find, it challenging, to hold these positions. Why is there still this gap, despite, our willingness to give women equal rights to represent?
Thank you for that brilliant question, TJ. I completely agree with you. Nigeria, unfortunately, ranks amongst the lowest when it comes to female representation in politics. We rank worse than countries like Afghanistan. So this is not only an abysmal representation of 50% of the population. We all know that women make up 50% of Nigeria's population. But yet in parliament, we are less than 5%, right? So the issue here is structural, it's financial, it's cultural, and even legal. That is why in the 10th National Assembly, a solution has been preferred, which is called the Reserved Seats for Women's Bill. This bill seeks to increase the participation of women in politics, particularly in parliament, by bringing one reserved seat per state and the FCT in both chambers. That's the Senate, that's 37 seats in the Senate, 37 additional seats in the House of Representatives, and 3 additional seats per state across the 36 states of the Federation for only women to contest. This does not stop women from contesting the traditional seats. It just increases the number of seats in parliament so women can participate and reflect the voices of Nigerians. So this is a solution that is being currently discussed in the National Assembly.
But to some, they feel that, look, reserving particular seats for the women folk signifies that they are weak, they can't compete, so let's preserve certain positions. Do you share that thought with this group of people?
Of course not. Women are powerful, women are intelligent, and if the field was leveled, then women wouldn't need this. But unfortunately, right now, you see structural and systemic barriers that prevents women from emerging victorious, even when they possess the intellectual capacity, when they present the political stamina to be able to emerge victorious. It's both structural in the political parties at the primary level and at the general level as well. You see ballot box snatching, you see the power bags, the money bags come out and fight. You even see physical violence. So we need to start off this transformation by reserving these seats for women. And even when they do contest under these reserved seats, we're going to still be at less than 30% representation, which is not still reaching the global gender agenda, which is 35% affirmative action. So this is just a starting point. We're not asking for much. And I have to give kudos to the Right Honourable Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Benjamin Kalu, who proposed this bill alongside 12 others. And his not superior, because they're all colleagues, but the Speaker himself, who yesterday emphatically stated that the 10th National Assembly is fully in support of this bill. And by the grace of God, by December 2025, they will be able to churn out a piece of legislation that would be reflective of the Nigerian populace. So I really want to use this platform to commend the Right Honourable Speaker, Tajuddin Abbas, the Deputy Speaker, Benjamin Kalu, and a host of others, even the Senate President and its leadership, who have thrown their full support behind this bill. We're very, very hopeful that this time around, because as you know, in the 8th Assembly, Biodun Olujimi had proposed it from Ekiti State. It failed. In the 9th Assembly, Right Honourable Speaker then Femi Gbajabiamila, alongside Nkiruka, had proposed it as well and had failed. But this time around, what we've done differently is to focus on one thing, which is asking for these reserve seats. We're not conflating issues by bringing in independent candidacy and bringing in, a host of other issues. Our demands are very clear. We want additional seats in the National Assembly and in the state assemblies for women to contest, and that is it. Support us.
Well, it's good that you mentioned that, because I was going to come to that. The bill was introduced in the last Senate, and I think in the Senate before that, and, it didn't get the support it needed. It was thrown out, and that is, I'm talking about in the Constitution review, but I'm not really going to dwell on that. There's this sentiment that, women don't support themselves. Even when it comes to elections, we see a lot of women, they galvanize for elections, but you see them tilting towards the male folk. How are you correcting that mindset that women should also support themselves when they ever see any of their, folk in the ring?
I would like to emphatically declare that it is not true that women do not support women, right? It is an evil machination from some select group of society that keeps indoctrinating the minds of women that you guys don't support each other. Women are fully in support of other women who have the capacity, because we're not just saying support people because they're women or support people because they're men. Support people with capacity. And when women step up to the plate, they have a wide array of people supporting them. What we do see is money politics, where votes are being bought for cheap due to the poverty rate in the nation, right? So it's whoever pays the most. So we look to change that. And the reason the reserves bill, seats for women's bill is the solution is because it, at its barest minimum, gives you only women to vote for, right? So at the end of the day, under this bill, you can only vote for a woman with the reserve seats. So there's no male contesting against her. So
it's like a freeway.
It's not tokenism, right? It's this ticket or this bill, when it's passed into law by the special grace of God, will actually ensure that women are campaigning across state. Because remember, the constituency for this bill is the entire state. So they have a lot of work to do. So it's not necessarily free or tokenism. It is a lot of work. However, it guarantees that there's a minimum number of women who are representing the Nigerian people in parliament. That's at the national and at the state level.
Okay, where do we place this, that it's a woman's world? Now, if it's the woman's world and it's not the man's world, why is it difficult for the women folk to be that assertive when it comes to election? Yeah, it's a good stuff that we're having this proposed bill that gives the affirmative action for women representation. But we're looking at 50%. Why is it that the women folk are not assertive? They have the money also. Why is it that you allow the men to beat you to the game and politics? Is it because the qualified women don't usually come out in elections? So when it comes to competition, the men seem to have the edge because those who are most qualified among the women folk don't present themselves.
I believe a lot of women with competence, with character, with integrity present themselves. But unfortunately, the system does not allow them to emerge victorious due to the violence, due to the money politics, due to cultural stereotypes and limitations, and generally due to the structure, due to the patriarchal system that we practice here in Nigeria, right? So when we talk about women, there isn't a lack of capacity. There isn't a lack of competence.
Exactly.
There isn't a lack of character. We have them throughout all 6 geopolitical zones, in the South-South, in the Southeast, in the Southwest, in the North-Central, in the Northeast, in the Northwest. You have women of character and competence. So the issue here is the systemic barrier that continues to hinder women from emerging victorious. And this is what this bill seeks to change. And with the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President, this is in conformity of what they claim to believe in. So we believe strongly that Mr. President, sooner than later, will throw his support behind this bill as well to ensure that there is a level playing field. I say all the time when I get a chance to discuss this, Mr. President has shown through the support of his wife, the First Lady of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, his support that he supports women who want to emerge victorious in politics. His wife was a senator, right? So it shows that he has a track record of supporting women who are brilliant, women who have the appetite for politics, and therefore he will throw his full support behind this bill. And when he gets to his desk, he will assent to it as president.
All right. Now, before we went on the break, you were talking about a few barriers, structural barriers, systemic barriers, financial barriers that stand against the women. What would you say are the support systems that are in place to help women overcome this kind of barriers?
It starts with the legal. I feel like the legal aspect is the most important hurdle that we need to cross. Because if you do not have a piece of legislation that is backing you, then unfortunately we'll keep on repeating the same cycle. In Nigeria, if you look at our political trajectory, we haven't made a consistent increase or improvement in terms of the representation of women in parliament. It's always shuffled. Sometimes we have about 10%, sometimes in some assemblies it drops to 7%. As of today, we have only 14 women in the House of Representatives out of 360 members. In the Senate, we only have 4 women out of 109 members. It was better in the 9th Assembly, it was better in the 8th Assembly. So this state is actually very poor. So there are a lot of barriers, as you mentioned. They're structural, they're financial, they're cultural. But I think the legal aspect is the hurdle that we really need to scale through first before we can even go towards addressing the other aspects. And that's what the reserved seats for women's bill seeks to do.
Okay, that's one phrase I don't like people use, and it is that let's give them. And I ask, who are the let's give them? It's as if they have the power to distribute. Now let's talk about the capacity of the women. They say, what are you bringing to the table? Tell us, what is the capacity of the women, the capacity of Nigerian women in helping to rebuild Nigeria?
I tell people all the time, women are peace builders. Women are strategic thinkers. Women, as you can see from our private sector, are leading at the forefront. Our banking industry right now is led by predominantly women. Our fintech industry is also led by women. I was looking at the story of a young girl who created this app, Bamboo. I'm sure you guys know about the trading app. The co-founder is a woman in her early 30s, right? So women are leading at the forefront in so many different industries. Why not politics? Women are proven to have the capacity, as I've said before, and there's sometimes you hear the questions, yes, you're saying let's give them, is it tokenism? Do they have the capacity? I said, maybe we should start asking that about the male folk who occupy power today. If we ask those integral questions, then I think our nation would have developed a lot further than it is today. So competence and capacity is required from both sexes, right? The men need to have the capacity, so do the women. And what we are trying to do while simultaneously advocating for the passage of this bill is to continue to build on the already established capacity of women folk who intend to contest for office so that we can build this nation. Nigeria cannot continue to fly on just one wing. We cannot continue to fight and build with one hand tied behind our backs. That is what we are currently doing by excluding 50% of the population. We can't think strategically, we can't think creatively if we do not involve women in governance. So it's high time that we do this. The world is a global village. The world is evolving faster than you and I can even comprehend. With the advent of technology, with the infusion of AI in our everyday lives, we cannot afford to leave half of our population behind. By 2050, Africa will be the largest continent in the entire world. 1 in 3 black people are Nigerians. Can we really afford not to involve women in politics and in governance and in decision making? I'll leave you to that to answer.
Well, some parties try to give women free nomination forms at the last election. Quite a very kind gesture, I must say. But aside this, did it go really far? And even if this does not work, what other support would you say political parties can also put in place to support the women just before, this bill actually, passes and is assented to?
We say thank you to the political parties who put that policy in place to either reduce, subsidize the cost of nomination forms, because we know they are astronomically high, right? So thank you to them. However, we can do more, right? Giving nomination forms to women, but still putting structural barriers where you've already decided who the candidates that would emerge is. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul and you're just, pretending, right? So why don't we create an opportunity, because women will still be contesting the general elections and the traditional seats. Why don't we ensure that we create more space in our political parties for women to come in, not just as women leaders, right? Not just as, for women positions, but they come in and participate fairly, right? So open up the space, create structures, create policies within your political parties for women to build with you. Political structures have traditionally been known as a boys' club. I think it would make do, and Mr. President, you alluded to it in your opening remarks, where Mr. President was saying that he does not want a one-party state. He's a Democrat. He encourages, other political parties to build and to contest. So for the political parties who want to challenge, the incumbent political party in office, ensure that you allow women come and participate in your party to lead from the forefront. This is the only way that you're going to make any true progress.
Okay, let's take a look at this aspect, because politics is a trickish game. Now, it's possible that, a seat is reserved for the women folk, then the men behind the scene play the game to determine the type of woman that emerges. What are your own type of group or groups like yours doing to ensure that women that are assertive, not the yes sir type of women that can bring effective change into the system, are the ones that picks the ticket at the end of the day, not the one that some persons decide for them?
That's a very important point, and that's also another thing that we're looking at. That's why we're urging political parties now to put women who are competent within your party. Because remember, the way this is going to work when the Reserved Seats for Women's Bill becomes law by the special grace of God is that each political party is bringing forth their best candidate. The APC will bring forth, its best woman. The Labour Party, the PDP, the coalition government, all of them will bring forth the best person. They will then compete against each other. And by the grace of God, we're hoping that it's the best woman who will win that position. So it's very important that political parties now start to think strategically about how do we ensure we're fielding our best candidates so that we stand a chance at winning, across all these seats in the 36 states and in the FCT. So it's very important that we start to build now structurally, internally, that you're ensuring that you're welcoming of more women who have the intellect and the capacity to lead.
So what are organizations like yours doing about grassroots mobilization? Because as we all know, when it comes to election, the votes come more from the grassroots, and we have more of those women there. What is your group doing to reach out to these women, to educate them that, look, when you see a woman coming in, support her. Don't be moved by, financial inducements, or what is your organization doing in that regard?
Brilliant question. We all know politics is local. So organizations such as TOS Foundation and a host of others, you have women in politics, you have WIMBIZ, WIMPO, you have so many others who are mobilizing at the grassroots level. The League of Women Voters of Nigeria are also mobilizing. We're all going to marketplaces. In fact, the National Association of Market Women did a walk, a solidarity walk asking for the passage of this bill. So they're all hands-on and they're speaking with each other. They're educating themselves. They're sensitizing their communities to ensure that when this bill passes into law, that all women, irrespective of age, irrespective of social class, are all coming out to support their women folk who have the competence and the capacity. And also the students. Young women across Nigeria are mobilizing themselves en masse to throw their support behind this bill and also to educate their peers that this bill will transform the trajectory of our nation developmentally.
Now, when we speak about reforms in education, reforms in the health sector, the women folk tend to benefit more. Now, what type of reform? Because we're talking about grassroots mobilization. Now, if the women benefit from health care and they benefit from education, they'll be interested even in election because they know that, okay, there's something for me in the system. What kind of reforms would you also expect that government begin to introduce? Yeah, government is doing much, but they can do much more. What are those specific things that you feel that, look, let's touch this place in education, touch this thing in health care delivery, and let's have a better society? What are those things?
Interestingly, research shows that when women are on the decision-making table, when they do participate in governance and they can actually legislate for the general public, they focus on social amenities and social welfare that have to do with the improvement of education, healthcare, and the general well-being of society. So what we can expect when the reserved seats for women's bill becomes law is that women will legislate for the betterment of the general public. Social amenities will be improved, healthcare, such as healthcare will be improved, education will be improved. This was proven in Rwanda. It was proven in Senegal. It was proven in South Africa. Ghana and Kenya are also implementing this. So there is a track record of when women lead, the nation rises. So this will also happen in Nigeria.
Well, there's also this growing concern that, when women tend to ascend to leadership roles, they tend to weaponize gender. And if you cast your mind back a little bit, you understand what I'm talking about. How do you, change this narrative and, make it more comfortable for people to accept women in leadership roles and not have that fear of them weaponizing gender, and know that it's just for the common good that the women also have a say when it comes to leadership roles and in terms of power?
I would have to throw the question back to you. What do you mean weaponizing gender?
Well, I don't know how to put that, but when I say weaponizing gender, in the sense that maybe you accuse the men or maybe play mind games on the men, I don't want to sound offensive, but I believe you understand what I'm talking about.
Okay. I would say, just because we're national TV, I would say that's total BS. That's bollocks. Women don't do that. I think a subset of people are threatened by women folk, right? As I said earlier, it's been a boys' club for so long, and opening it up to a different set of people can be a bit threatening. But I want to assure our male folk, do not be threatened by women entering into politics and into the decision-making table. We can only enrich the quality of your decisions and make Nigeria a better place.
Yeah, I know there's that support that, and you're positive that it will be passed by the 10th National Assembly. Assuming the 10th National Assembly is moving against it like they did in the 8th and the 9th, what are groups like yours going to do if the National Assembly eventually is turning their back? Because there might be groups that are also mobilizing, this thing must not be passed and all that. What do you want to do?
Thankfully, we're doing a lot of advocacy. It's hard work. We are not yet at Uhuru, as the Right Honourable Speaker of the House of Representatives, Sajudeen Abbas, said yesterday, that we still have a lot of work to do. However, the leadership is in support of it. I think we've also seen that there's a critical need for it, right? We've seen when women ascend into power, when they shatter specific glass ceilings, there have been a lot of progress. There have been a lot of dividends trickled down to the poorest of the poor in our society. So we want to replicate that until it becomes critical mass. So as of today, I can categorically say to you that the National Assembly is behind it. And I'm a type of person, I don't plan for plan B, I don't plan for failure. I'm one-track minded, we are going to succeed, we are all going to mobilize ourselves. The media, both of you are going to become ambassadors of this bill, and all hands will be on deck to ensure that this becomes law.
Well, let's talk about empowering women to the future. Currently, girls contribute to the highest number of out-of-school children as we have it here in Nigeria. So how are we tackling this to ensure that our future is more secure, especially for the women?
That's a brilliant question. At TOS Foundation, I'll speak specifically about the foundation I run. We focus on women and girls. Girls who have yearned for quality education, and all they needed was a helping hand. And we've been able to provide that to them. And we believe that education is critical for the development of our nation. So there are other foundations like mine who are doing a lot. And we just need to couple, the work that we're doing with those in government, with the policies of government, to ensure that we're able to scale these programs to reach, all the corners of Nigeria, because education is critical. And not just education in the traditional sense, but education to lead in a global world, right, is what is needed as of today. So we're empowering our girls with the tools that are needed, that they could yearn for leadership tomorrow, and they'll have the competence and the capacity to do so.
Wow. Mrs. Osasu Ibinidium Ubuche, it's quite a pleasure speaking with you this morning. I must say I really, really enjoyed the conversation. Not because I'm a woman, but because you made a lot of very strong points, and I must commend you for that. Thank you so much for your time with us on the program this morning.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both so much. I truly appreciate you both. And remember, you're ambassadors of the Reserved Seats for Women's Bill.
Of course.
Definitely. Any day.
You recruited us now. Well, that's what we have for you today on TVC Breakfast, FCT Brief.